Today we are with Hector Schamis, professor at Georgetown University and one of the most important experts on Latin America. We want to talk to you. Thank you for joining us, Professor Schamis.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
We want to talk to you about the Amia anniversary. I mean, the Argentina Israelite Mutual Association attack in 1994. 26 years later, what can we say about this attack?
Well, that many things. You can say that impunity has prevailed. First of all, which is the most painful dimension of this, is that nobody's in jail because of this. There's been a prosecution, there's been people that were accused formally, some Iranians with red alerts, and then a whole, tragedy that the victim number 86 was the prosecutor, Alberto Nisman, which was tragic, who died in confusing circumstances. They said suicide, but it's unlikely. And it's one of those, aspects. And then if you go back, well, you will say, well, we discuss Hezbollah in Latin America today, but Argentina had Hezbollah 26 years ago. And so what's surprising about Hezbollah in Venezuela or in some other places, if they were capable of doing this 26 years ago in Buenos Aires?
Why Argentina was so crucial for Iran and Hezbollah? Why?
Well, there's speculation. I mean, the largest Jewish community in Latin America, perhaps, a government that at the time, the president was Carlos Menem. Carlos Menem was born Muslim, and from a Syrian family immigrant to Northwest Argentina. And he converted to Catholicism because the old constitution required that, required, Roman Catholic only for president. And then realign himself completely with the United States. And then there are all kinds of speculations. Nobody even knows for real. I mean, Hezbollah never said, yes, we did it. The Iranians never admitted to it. So it's all conjecture.
But what was the role of a nuclear deal in Argentina? Because there were some speculations about it. And nuclear, it's really crucial for Iran in Latin America, not only in Argentina, but now we can see in Venezuela. I mean, for many years in Venezuela. So what was the role of nuclear?
There was talk about that, and then there was talk about that much later with the agreement that the Cristina Kirchner administration made with the Iranians, the sort of, memorandum of understanding that Argentina would withdraw charges from, because the Iranians that have red alerts on them, they can't leave Iran. And so, and there was conversation, there was speculation that that deal had also to do with plutonium, that Argentina produces or produced, I don't know if it does anymore, plutonium, which is another mechanism for enriching instead of uranium. And that the Iranians were always interested in that, and that as apparently that would have been the at least the deal or the conversation or the goal of the Iranians in making this deal.
As you mentioned, in 2015, Alberto Nisman, the prosecutor, Alberto Nisman, was killed, because personally I don't believe that he committed suicide. But I want to ask you, what was the role of Cristina Kirchner governments in all this story? As you say, we don't know today who really is accountable for this attack. Alberto Nisma was killed. I mean, in all this story, the role of Cristina Kirchner.
Well, Nisman was killed on a Sunday in January 2015, right?
Yeah.
When the next day, there was a special session in Congress scheduled for his presentation, in which he was going to accuse the administration, the Cristina Kirchner government, of a cover-up with Iran through this memorandum of understanding. And well, that never got to happen. That's why people do say, well, Amia, the bombing killed 85 people in the building and around the building that morning, July 1994. And the 86th victim was Alberto Nisman, who was investigating and had concluded that there was collusion between the government of Cristina Kirchner and the Iranian regime.
But in your opinion now, I mean, we know that the last government, Hezbollah, is now, it has been designated as a terrorist organization in Argentina. But actually, we have a very critical situation. We still have a critical situation at the triple border, because as we know, there are many Hezbollah clan, as for example, Barakat, that are still playing a very important role in drug trafficking and money laundering. So in your opinion, what will be the next step for Argentina, but also for the countries of the triple border, Paraguay and Brazil, to really fight against Hezbollah?
Well, first of all, a lot more coordination among them. That they have very little and very inefficient of that. Hezbollah has been proven to be present in the triple border, as you say, in Iquique, the area, Iquique in northern Chile, yeah, in Sinaloa, among other areas. And that has been going on for quite some time. They are involved in drug trafficking. They are involved in used cars operation that they still. There is an operation.
Cassandra.
What? Cassandra, exactly. Cassandra was a DEA operation that was supposed to go after them. They didn't have, according to some information, enough support on the part of the Obama administration.
Exactly.
And then the operation got truncated in some way. And they detected this involvement with narcotics and money laundering and stolen car operation that they would drive from place to place and sell. And of course, much more organic relationship with the Maduro regime. For quite some time now, remember the Tarek El Aissami passport story occurred in 08, 09. And then in 2010, it was revealed by a former Venezuelan diplomat who knew of it just by accident. So more coordination, more sanctions to the Venezuelan cronies who profit from them, are associated with them, are in collusion with Hezbollah and Tehran. And Latin Americans have not sanctioned one single of the corrupt officials of the Maduro regime. And when there have been sanctions just this past week, Switzerland sanctioned a new bunch of them. But Latin America hasn't sanctioned one single one of them. When it is that they do have assets spread in different places of Latin America as well, in addition to Europe, in addition to the US, etc. So there's plenty that can be done, and they're not doing, as much as they could, as much as one would expect.
Why, in your opinion, Latin America has been such a fertile ground for Hezbollah outside Lebanon?
Well, because I would say it has a weak states with low capacity to enforce the law, and very porous borders, where, you know, border control is in many parts of Latin America non-existent. Borders that also border areas that have very little state presence, precisely, where you can, you know, cross a street and walk through, and that's a border. I mean, the other area where Hezbollah is profiting a lot is, of course, the border between Táchira and Norte de Santander in Colombia, Táchira, Venezuela, the whole area around Cúcuta, which is paradise for illicits, Hezbollah illicits, FARC illicits, ELN illicits, etc., etc. The border there is, you know, the so-called trochas, where people walk through a little river that a good part of the year is dry. And so you walk by and you cross the border. And that's thousands of kilometers that can be crossed like that. So it's sort of an ideal place. Plus, governments of a certain type that were open for business with illicit, you know, organizations.
Do you think that ALBA, the Bolivarian Alliance, really played a pivotal role in this story, or it was just a plus?
Oh, most definitely. The story about the Venezuelan passports that ended up in the hands of Hezbollah talk about 10,000 passports. The Ministry of the Interior at the time was Tarek El Aissami, today Vice President, one of the Vice Presidents. And the Ministry of Interior is the agency that issues documentation, passports among them. So all that occurred, I think, in the consulate, in the Venezuelan consulate in Damascus, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And well, 10,000. So those are 10,000 Hezbollah operatives with Venezuelan passports. And of course, I mean, the Venezuelan regime, Chavismo, its foreign policy, ALBA foreign policy, and all that reorientation of the international relations of Latin America that happened in those years and that continue to happen had a lot to do with the expansion of Hezbollah in this hemisphere.
Do you think, just to finalize our interview, that the arrest of Alex Saab in Cabo Verde could really open other doors to the Hezbollah knowledge for the investigators? I mean, it seems that it is working also for Hezbollah.
I don't really know for a fact. I read about that. I've talked to some people who have made that argument. It remains to be seen. First of all, it remains to be seen if he ends up in Florida, which, according to the press, is likely. It appears to be going in that direction, but, you know, we'll see if and when it happens. And then we'll see if, in fact, that is the case. But, you know, this regime is, this criminal regime, this criminal organization in power, and I'm not talking about just Hezbollah, I'm talking about the Maduro regime, is so resourceful that they managed to get previous cases like this off the hook. Like Carvajal in Aruba, for example. That was exactly the same case. And I'm saying Aruba, which is the Dutch government. And Aruba didn't send Carvajal to the US as had been requested, the extradition. Aruba, I mean, the Dutch government sent it back to Venezuela on similar charges, drug trafficking, money laundering, and so on and so forth. So we shouldn't be extremely optimistic. We should be realistic. If it happens, well, it's going to be a good thing, obviously, and then we'll see what comes out.
Do you think that he could be killed? Because, you know, they change the prison.
Well, I don't know. I mean, by whom? By the, well, the US wants him to
not by the US, but
right.
it.
Well, if somebody wants him silenced, well, we've seen it in so many movies. I mean, right? And the Venezuelan regime has gone beyond all kinds of movies. The best cinematography has been absolutely pedestrian compared to the things that this regime has done.
I really thank you for our talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure.